Welcome to the Women in Industry podcast. My name is Kirsty Davies-Chinnock, and today I'm joined by Margaret Renshaw. Margaret is a Senior HR Consultant at Mate UK, and I'm sure you all know that Mate UK champions engineering and manufacturing in the UK, supporting businesses around the country. So welcome, Margaret. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thanks, Kirsty. Good morning.
Good morning. It's a cold and grey and miserable Monday morning in January when we're recording this. We had a storm last night, and I hope all your fences are where you left them this morning.
All the fences are there, yeah, but we had an absolute hoolie as if we were on board ship last night. We were right up in the Peak District.
Well, we're a bit further down from you, and had a panel from under the eaves appear in the garden last night. So
wow.
I need to find somebody with some scaffolding to put that back up.
Not good.
So no, my husband was out there in the rain with the torch, and I just watched out the windows, playing to our strengths.
Yeah, good place to be.
So yeah, definitely. I was supervising with a glass of wine, I didn't realise that Mate UK, the HR department, was so big. You've got over 60 members of the team, and I was doing a bit of sort of research, and you've got some graphics on Mate UK and your LinkedIn profile stating that each year you answer over 10,000 HR and employment law questions, and you've provided over 9,000 training days. Those are some big numbers.
They are some big numbers, they're big numbers that we're really proud of, absolutely. And, those questions and queries are fielded by our advice line and our dedicated advisors to members as well. Absolutely. Yeah. So it is a big number.
If you look at the makeup of companies in the UK, there are so many SMEs that are the lifeblood, particularly in engineering and manufacturing sectors. Yeah. And most SMEs don't have dedicated HR departments. It tends to be a senior manager or the MD, and it's just another hat you wear. So how important is it for you and your team to be able to provide this information, particularly to SMEs?
I think it's vital in certain situations. We try to be there. We work in partnership with a lot of our clients, we call them, members, if you like. And I work on the commercial team, so my colleagues are there at the desk doing tribunals, talking them through situations. But sometimes it involves us, or a lot of times it involves myself as one of the commercial team, going out there and actually helping them. So picking up a project like an organisational change or a redundancy, or the other side of it, things like employee engagement. What do we do with the survey results we've got, and how do we make sure that we're lean enough, that we've got the skills that we require in order to actually compete in that marketplace as well. And these are the skills and resource that are not always freely available, as you say, because other people take on the mantle of HR itself.
I think one of the things that's obvious from what I've seen on your LinkedIn post and from my own experience over the last 30 odd years is how things have changed from when I started in the 80s. And, it was like, do this, just do what I say. To now collaboration, engagement. You just mentioned engagement there, is a lot more important. What are the changes you've seen?
I would totally agree with you, Kirsty. I think the thing is, it's not top down as much. It's more coaching. We're seeing more coaching culture come in there. The collaboration is, recognising you've got people with the skills, sort of reaching out and making sure that your managers are actually included in some of these, the detailed discussions around projects. The collaboration as well is really between individuals, team members who can actually, support each other as well, support each other with things that are new and different in an organisation, and also support them from a personal point of view as well.
I think that's one of the things that's always made SMEs. A lot of people use the words family businesses. I personally, that's not a phrase I bat about. But, you know, you work with people, I mean, 10 hours a day, 5 days a week, sometimes 6 or 7, for decades. I mean, we've got so many anniversaries this year. We've got several 10 years, of 40 years, of 30 years. You know, not including those who've been here 19, 18, 17.
No.
And it's a big part, and it's about having a personal relationship with those individuals. And I think recognizing that if you've got a fancier title, it doesn't make you more important. It just means you've got a different role. Are you seeing more of that coming through from the leaders with your client base?
I think the thing is, you're right. Now, I would agree with what you say about family businesses. Some of these people have grown with an organisation, grown with a company, and it is much more important because they've had the confidence to stick with the individual, the company. Titles, people are still, quite anxious about title changes, and I think it's the perception. There's a lot more flat structures these days than literally, pyramids. And I think, there are more specialists sometimes, and sometimes managers they have a responsibility for a technical aspect of the job, but they're not always people and man managers. So I think that's the difference there. Yeah, but people are recognised by their titles, and I think it's a very emotive situation for people when you talk about people's titles, and sometimes there's no change in the responsibility, but bring the title up to present day, it's very different. The production managers used to be the production manager, but now you've got technical leads and some of the people on the similar and same level in the hierarchy. So I hope that answers your question.
It does. I think it's when you've sort of been doing it a long time, it's interesting to see how things evolve. How do you see the future of the workplace, and particularly with workplace engagement, changing in the future? Have you got any tips so we can be ahead of the game?
I'd love to tell you yes, but it's people. I think that's a beauty of this job. You're engaging with people on all different levels. From training, to discussions with strategic discussions at board ops level. I think, to be fair, it's that giving people the opportunity to feel comfortable, bring their whole self to work. When you think of the equality, diversity, inclusion sphere we've got out there, making people feel comfortable that it's okay to, to have a different representation of self, to be a carer, be a parent, in any shape, guardian, and that's okay. It's about what you do, what your contribution is, and just allowing people to feel comfortable enough to say, look, I need a day, can I have some carers leave? I think the other thing is, aligning people to what they bring to the table and empowering them to have voice. For me, engagement is about taking the people with you. We talk about the human resource, but I think it really is, when you dig into the human element of it, it's your people. Because, the business is only as good as the people the people that it employs, or is working in partnership with, because the business is not the building.
I think for me, that's one of the most notable changes over my sort of 35 years, is that people are valued a lot more now than they were back in the 80s, both for what they contribute and how they do it,
Yes.
but also for themselves as individuals.
I would agree, because
I
again,
think
if you think of the traditional top-down management, you know, this is an instruction, command and control. Well, you had a choice, didn't you? If you didn't like it, you know, one of those phrases was get on your bike and do something else, wasn't it? Without getting into a political quote there. But it was true, where now I think we've got more understanding of what it really means, to be successful. What does that success look like? Yeah. Yeah.
and it
And
looks different for every individual, doesn't it?
it does. It does. And I think that's another thing, it's aligning your policies and procedures, not for every individual. And unfortunately, that just doesn't work. It can't work. But understanding where people, can recognize something for them, it's blended. And I think, again, that's another thing. We have blended communities, and we have blended teams, and recognizing the value of what they bring. Feeling valued is such an important aspect of going to work. And that simple thank
It
you.
is. I agree with that. Yeah, definitely. And it's amazing how it's changed from you only ever got told when you were doing something wrong, and nobody ever
Yes,
told you were doing something right or said thank you
true.
for it.
Yeah, yeah.
On your LinkedIn profile, because one of the things I do ahead of this podcast is stalk everybody a little bit online. You posted a Simon
Mm.
Sinek image demonstrating the circle of safety, the why, how, and what. How do you demonstrate this to your clients to either implement or improve organisational trust and collaboration? And how important is it for them to understand this circle of safety?
I think if I come from it from the point of view, I think it's really important. I think people will do anything as long as they understand. I think it's sharing. It's not treating people like objects. So the circle of safety for me is actually engaging with people. Why do we need to do it? Asking them, getting feedback, again, that collaboration piece, and encouraging companies to do that. For me, I think, coming on the same or similar topic, a few years ago, I did a piece of work with a company who were niche sector, and from an engagement survey, I actually worked with the management team, the director, the MD, and the HRD, and worked together. And what we did was we worked and got focus groups, got real feedback, and the result was that they changed their terms and conditions. That there was more sick pay, there was a blended way of working, the fact that there could be their core hours, but they had, let's say, they had 40-hour working week, but it wasn't, they didn't get the most out of it, so they reduced the working week, gave the employees some flexibility. It worked, and that was the why are we doing it, understanding the why, understanding what for. But again, for me, it was that safety, the circle of security, if you like, there. They felt able to express really what was happening. Certain processes weren't working, and it wasn't helping them. And the result of that was, as I say, they made the change. We resurveyed about 18 months afterwards. But the key for them was it improved their productivity and performance, and they actually smashed a couple of targets and got recognition from the parent company. So it works, and I think for me, it's working with individual, understanding what you're doing and trying to give something back. And for me, that circle of security is client-wise. Make sure they understand that you're there as a safety net. You're not going to knowingly let them fall. Test some things out, but let's have a plan B and have a safety net in place.
I think that's going back to the engagement, the collaboration, and you use the word blended quite a lot.
Mm.
I think one of the best part about working as an SME with an engaged team is that they want exactly what you want. They want to hit their
Yes.
targets. They want to increase productivity.
Mm-hmm.
They want to improve quality. They want to reduce downtime. They want to get rid of those niggles that makes it
Yeah.
more difficult for them to do their job. And if
Mm-hmm.
everybody does that and all works together, you end up with a better product produced quicker and more efficiently,
Yeah,
and
would
hopefully
agree.
at less cost.
Mm-hmm.
So you're keeping the clients happy,
Mm-hmm.
the MD's happy, and the team are happy. But it's when you don't ask their opinion and
Yes.
don't get their input that any kind of change management just is doomed to fail.
It is. I agree. Again, it comes back to that command and control. People are living in fear. It's their perception, not necessarily the reality, but they pick up on things that seem as though they're going to impact on them, make them uncomfortable, take them out of their comfort zone, spin some negative vibe in there. And yes, I agree. Even the smallest change, take your people along with you, from even, look, we are contemplating this. What are your views? And it can be on, getting your technical people, your operators, who are the people who actually implement some of those changes that can make such an impact and a difference. So yes, it's about shared responsibility as well, I think, and giving them that opportunity to understand that.
And when you're implementing things, we always need to understand that people learn differently. So if they're going to run a new program, or practical aspects of the role are changing for improvements,
Mm-hmm.
how do HR professionals such as yourself and your team, how can you help the management team to make sure that they're teaching the individuals in a way that is going to bring that change or improvement to a successful conclusion?
Mm-hmm. I think, again, it's about, first of all, it's the communication. Then it's understanding what it is. Is it technical training? Is it the fact that it's organisational change? So a little bit about culture change, about behaviours, about, explaining to people that you get to a stage where you've got unconscious incompetence. You don't know what you're doing and you don't know what to do. Then it becomes a conscious understanding. And then you can put it into conscious competence. So what you're doing, but you still have to think about it. And that's change itself. Then when you're there, when let's say when you have implemented change, it's still a work in progress. But people do things, it becomes second nature again. I'm back in my comfort zone. It might be different, but I've had the tools, I have the understanding of the why, very much about expressing the vision, how people will be impacted, what people are likely to need, and then looking at what's the training, what's the re-education piece, and allowing people to do that in many different ways. Some people come into a training session, a classroom base, if you like, and freak out. They remember school, it's not their preferred learning style. But it can be blended, it can be coaching. You can do things like self-learning, some of the videos we use. We put videos now, little 5-minute slots and things, into training. I think it's also recognising how people learn. Some people are not visual. Some people are very theoretical, but equally some people find it easier to understand with the visuals. And a couple of things that we do in our leadership is, understanding your leadership style. So it can be a self-assessment questionnaire. What do I know about myself? What does this say about me? To give them a starting point. and then building with the information exchange. And again, very much about recognising that we've all got experience, and I think as a trainer, it's a respect and recognising you might be delivering a subject matter, but empower the people in the training session to share. They've got lots of knowledge and experience. And some people are open enough to say, hey, look, we did that a couple of years ago, but didn't quite work out how we wanted it to. But we've moved on, or I've done that before. And, as a young manager or someone in my early stages of my career, I tried that and I probably wouldn't do that again. So again, it's a bit like reflection in a way, reflecting on what we know in order to build that knowledge base, something we can tap into.
You mentioned reflection. I think reflection has a lot of benefits to individuals and organisations to improve not only their performance but also their mental health. If you can look back and reflect on something rather than obsess over something,
yes,
something you did wrong, a mistake that was made, and go, okay, why did it not work? What was the core reason for that? Can I change that in the future? Have I learnt from it? Then reflection can be a really powerful tool. Reflection is not the same as lying there at 2:00 in the morning, going over every conversation you had when you were 24 or something and going, oh my God.
No. And beating yourself up about it. Yes, no. And you focus on the negative, don't you? And you beat yourself up and you do the comparatives between yourself and another person. So, yeah, I would agree. I think reflection is sorry, go on.
No, carry on, please.
I think the thing with reflection is something that we are hopefully building in more and more. I think as professionals, as managers, I think we need to reflect because it's also the reflection of impact. And if you put it into an organisational perspective, as you've just done, performance, productivity and outputs, I think that is a lot easier for people. And another phrase that I find, and I have done recently with some management training, is you talk about reflection, but they talk about lessons learned, project management aspects of it, and risk logs. But when you do the personal reflection, I think that is a little bit more difficult to put in, and I'm going to say put in the diary. Diarise the time even for yourself in your downtime to say, maybe I should have done, maybe I would do that differently. And I think again it comes back to, as you've just said, that it's cause and effect. But if we don't reflect, we can't, in a way, it makes it difficult for us to move on from some of these challenging and emotive conversations, which may be personal, which may be personal aspects of life that you've got to take into work. And, ask for time off, ask for some carers leave, or, can I do a little bit of a flex this week because, my kids are doing their GCSEs and their A-levels and, they need a bit more time. So I think that for me, we don't put enough emphasis, I think, on reflection, I think, if I'm honest. And I don't mean it from a project base, because if it's got it's a big ticket item, I think we do. And I think we've focused on that project aspect. But I think it's harder sometimes to find time to reflect because we're on to the next task project, we run to the next meeting, we're on a Skype or a Teams. So, yeah, it's really important. But I think we've got to diarise it for ourselves, if that makes sense. I put in my diary everything I need to do, my responsibility for other people to maintain and make sure everybody has what they need. But do I do it enough for myself?
I think that's something that nobody does enough for themselves. You've got so many responsibilities, whether it's family, work, colleagues, pets. I know you've got 2 Labradors,
I do. They're like
Ghost and
they're like
Bee.
my children.
I have 2 Labradors who are my daughters. Mine are
Oh,
Athena and
lovely.
Nix. And particularly with the younger one, she's a rescue,
Oh,
um,
lovely.
and is scared of everything. So we
Yes.
have one incredibly laid back one and one who's just full of cortisol, um,
Mhm.
even after 4 years. So yay. So how old are Ghost and Bee?
B is 3 and Ghost is 3.5. But B is a new addition to the
Oh,
family. She's only been with us a couple of months. We lost our other yellow lab because Ghost's a yellow lab. We lost her probably about 4 months ago. Unfortunately, she was 14, 15, so she'd had a good life. But we
good
got
age,
B,
good age.
very good age. Yeah. But B's just in that terrible twos. She's just learning. She's just settling in. The first month was, oh, can I do this? And how far do I push the envelope? But she'd lived out in an outside kennel when we got her from a reputable breeder, let's say, but obviously kennelled outside. I always live in the house, they come upstairs, and I'd always said, they're not coming on the bed. So what does she do? Jump straight on the bed. And obviously the thing my husband now says is, I thought they weren't coming on the bed. But she lays there, she's comfortable. But yeah, she's a real scamp. She's actually a Springer. She's not a Labrador, sorry. We had 2 labs. So as you can imagine, she's like a million miles an hour. And I'm running around thinking, where is she? What's she doing? And getting her to stop jumping up at the door when you're trying to put food down. There's like just a jack in a box. A hyperactive jack in a box.
Yeah, Nix. We think she's a mix between a Springer Spaniel and a Labrador, although she
Oh,
looks
well,
like a brown lab.
yeah, lovely.
So she's a Spanador,
Yeah,
we think. And this morning I was working out before I came to work, and they normally sleep on the sofa in the room next to where my home gym is.
yes.
And I went out, and Athena's standing there with her halo, and Nix was in the sitting room tearing an oven glove to pieces,
Oh, okay.
that she can't reach. So Athena steals it off the counter, gives it Nix, and then gets her sister into trouble. So
Oh, okay.
anyway, I could talk about dogs all day. Last
Me as
question,
well.
Margaret. I know. What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Oh, this for me is something that resonates every day. If you can't give advice or you can't answer a question for a client, you haven't asked enough questions. It all comes back to understanding what you're being asked. So you can't give a response, whether it's direct advice or whether it's starting a conversation, let's say within a scoping planning meeting. If you don't understand it, you can't give a true and honest answer. So if you can't give a
Oh, I
piece of
like that.
advice, you
And that
haven't
applies to
asked
so
enough
much, doesn't
questions.
it? Yeah, it does. Well, thank you so much, Margaret, for your time. It's been great to have you on. And good luck with the terrible twos.